Welcome back to Seven Deadly Sins Anime Review, episode number 15. Yep, 15. This one, the 16th episode anime, The Doll Seeks Love, and the 334th chapter of the manga, End of an Era. Yep. This episode pretty much finished adapting chapter 217, adapts a side story, the fourth one, which actually is not in the book I have right here, it's actually collecting the previous book, and it also adapts most of almost the entirety of chapter 218 with the exception of the last page. Yeah, I have no idea why they don't adapt the last page, but so the episode picks up right where last week's episode you have Gowther running through the streets of Leonis, basically running away because they discover his heart. He tries to erase his memories, and then we get a flashback. Yes, this is where the side story comes in, where he just basically wakes up underground, underneath the tree, and he's near his body of his late father, Gothar, the actual one, the demon one, and he meets Naja. This is a change from the manga. There's a slight change, a visual change. Yeah, the studio team decided to make her breasts bigger than they were in the manga. Okay. And he does pretty much the same thing as the manga. He basically just pokes, oh yeah, you're a girl. She slaps another. There's another change here with him just basically running to a corner because she slapped him. In the manga, he does kind of do this, but not as not as basically like over the top they do in the anime. It's like, why'd you slap me? It's like, you're scary. You like act like. Of course, he doesn't call him a pervert because he did something inappropriate. Yeah. So then, of course, they talk about the fact they have to get back to the surface, and then we meet the fact her brother is Batra. Yes, the current king of Leonis. So it makes basically Naja, Princess Elizabeth, basically her aunt. Yep. And she's Batra's older sister. Mm-hmm. Yep. And is it just me or the way that he looks in the anime? He kind of looks like a bit like Henderson. I mean, he has the same hair color as Henderson. And it was basically a joke, basically a little bit later, when Hawk asked Batra, like, why does Veronica and Naja look exactly like? Well, Naja is my elder sister. Yep. And the fact that they gave her purple hair, just like her niece, which has not been explained. It's kind of weird the fact that King Batra, his second daughter, his middle daughter, has got the same hair color and a striking resemblance to his late sister. As far as I can tell, there's no explanation for this at all, aside from the fact they're related. I mean, last time I checked, I don't think King Batra basically committed, a one-night stand with his own sister. I highly doubt he did that. I mean, he deeply cared for his sister, but I highly doubt he'd do anything with her. And of course, as revealed, she has a heart condition, which also caused her to die early death, like a heart disease. Okay, explain the whole heart thing. And eventually, she comes back later after she promised to come back, reads him a story, and of course he gives him a story. He reads it really quickly. And the way it's shown looked like he read it in the course of 5 minutes. And apparently it seems like a doll seems kind of like an android, the way it's depicted in the series. Where like an android, like the ways with Data in Star Trek, where he reads something really quickly and understands it perfectly fine, and he's able to transform his hair into golden blonde. And somehow that kind of gives her a heart attack, so he pretty much dressed up as a maid. Now, I should point out that when he's first seen here, now in the manga, his outfit he was shown wearing, which is basically the red vest opened up with the white pants. In the manga, he's like roughed up, and his outfit's been sliced up here and there. In the anime, it's perfectly fine, surprisingly, despite the fact he's been asleep for about 3,000 years, and this flashback takes place, because a portion of this episode is a flashback, takes place 45 years before the events of the present day events of the series. And so he disguises himself as a maid off screen and just, brings her back to the castle. Of course, he takes care of her. He dresses up as a knight, despite the fact he's a guy dressed up in a maid outfit. This is nothing used for Gowther. He does the same thing in present day, he wears a waitress's outfit, which is also the same type of outfit that Elizabeth wears, when she's a waitress at the Boar's Hut. Mm-hmm. So apparently Gowther is kind of like Meliodas and, of course, later revealed to be Zedros, where apparently they have a thing for a big breast. Yeah, that's the thing when it comes to them. So he spends time with her. And then he basically, after basically he's done with her, he basically makes out with her, and then sits on her bed. Now they don't have this depicted in the anime. In the manga, right after they made out, they had sex. Yes, a woman has sex with a doll. Okay, and then of course she does die, and he tries to give it her heart, and the thing is, when the guards come in, this is basically after they've already had sex, and he's completely naked. In the anime, he's fully clothed. My personal opinion about this change, it's fine. It's my guess is for probably a bit of wider audience like an anime. It probably would have been inappropriate to show something like this, despite the fact they actually cut the whole thing out. Now, the only series I've seen is not a hentai, where they actually put sex in the anime, was actually an episode of Tokyo Ghoul. Yeah, it was in Re for like one episode, where they actually picked the main character having sex with the woman he later married and basically had showered with. They actually have sex in that particular series. But yeah, it's something they're doing for this series though. No, they don't. They just basically show him like he's on top of her, yes, like he's picking the manga, except he's fully clothed, unlike in the manga where he's actually butt naked. You actually see his butt in the manga, yeah, and she's completely naked as well. So the guards break in after hearing basically she had died, and they kind of turned on the blood here because in the manga there's like a heck of a lot more blood as you here in the anime. Probably the first episode too, they actually turned on the blood. Yeah, which I don't have a problem with that at all because, well, in the case of this is appropriate because it's a woman. We don't need to see a woman bloodied in the series. It's completely unnecessary to do. hmm So he gets arrested and pretty much leads. Now they also changed his clothing here. His outfit is simply put the outfit he was wearing when he was arrested. Yeah, which is slightly different than what's depicted in the anime. But later on that later show, basically the next thing happens probably when Melis recruited him to join the Seven Deadly Sins. Excuse me, jump to present day where Diane's basically trying to pull him off from erasing his own memory. Eventually, he's there bend his backwards. Now, they actually cut a line out here in the anime where he mentions basically her combat level. Yeah, they keep basically King's combat level, but they also cut out another line here where he's like, oh, King, not you too. And they kind of reversed it. Basically said the combat line, then he said that, which is kind of odd. They kind of reversed the line there. And eventually, Merlin basically comes about, and you have Escanor basically who's out of breath while running around the whole city looking for Gothor. And eventually, the heart is basically put back in him, and he's kind of restored back normal. And apparently, it looks like the Diane and King have basically sort of reconciled with Gothor. And of course, they'll mention about, oh yeah, it's a captain's treat. Now they actually mention this basically while they're walking up a side of like a hill, what looks like almost like a ramp to some place. And it's a bit of a montage after this. Heck, they even have the credits roll during the last bit of the episode, and then that's where they stop, which is kind of weird. And they actually don't show the last page of chapter 218 for some strange reason. I don't know why. They just don't. Yeah, they don't show off the fact that in the manga, you see, at the end of chapter 218, they were going to show off the new Boar Hut. In the anime, they don't show that at all. Unknown why they stopped there, but they did. Overall, the episode was actually pretty damn good. Yep. I would say that anything addition-wise made the episode, well, there's some minor visual changes and some minor words of dialogue they changed and cut some out, but mostly it's mostly the same. Now for the chapter of the manga, The End of an Era. Chapter has this wonderful image of Escanor's blade, this one-handed blade, where it basically goes about End of an Era. And you see Henderson, Jericho, Gula, and Dreyfus basically just standing around talking about the fact that the whole war is over. And the fact they beat apparently for the 7 Deadly Sins, they have it where, and I'm not sure what it is for, they have put the 7 Deadly Sins in hyphen for some reason, probably because it's translated. It's like 7 Deadly Sins defeated the king, and Prince Lisa, oh, thank goodness. And of course, everybody's all celebrating the fact that the war is finally over. And apparently, Gil walks off, and they find out what happened to. Apparently, they basically talk about what happened to Escanor, happened last year where he actually died. and the trio basically just go walking about. They don't actually talk about the women. Like, two of these guys are basically women they're in love with. Well, two of the princesses. The other one is basically with Deanne. I'll just walk about, and then we cut to the seven deadly sins. Basically, well, we see them drinking. We see the three knights drinking at a bar, and then we see Vivian shows up. Apparently, she's alive, despite the fact she had her heart ripped out by a Margaret possessed when Margaret was possessed by a freaking angel. Despite the fact she's alive, somehow he's like, oh, like, how are we giving up? Despite the fact she's supposed to be dead. So she basically reborn somehow. It's never it's not explained. It's like, yeah. So apparently it's explained that apparently Dreyfus resurrected her somehow. Yeah, Dreyfus resurrected her. Like, okay, fine. And she's like, let's break up. It's like, nothing for us. Like, what? Kill? Yeah, it's like, okay, Vivian's kind of giving him, and then like, how about Time of Chaos? What is that exactly? And then we cut to Seven Deadly Sins drinking to having a toast to the late Escanor. We also see it's not Hauser, it's one of those guards for the king just standing there too. I don't remember this guy's name, the guy with the mask who apparently had a thing for Goldthorpe for some reason. I don't know why. And of course Merlin still has like the scarf on her face when she made out with Merlin, when we had with Escanor last chapter. And the chapter ends basically with this. The era begins swift toward the king's death catalyst. One magician is seeking. And apparently, we might get a chance to see the resurrection of King Arthur in the next chapter. I hope so, because I think for some people who've been reading the series for probably a long time, I think the killing of King Arthur was probably a mistake. And probably Meliodas probably realizes that was a mistake he did. Maybe he's going to bring him back next chapter. I hope so. Yeah. This chapter was really good. It's more like just an aftermath chapter. But yeah, the whole point of this chapter, just honoring just basically a eulogy for Escanor, who died in the last chapter. Yeah. OSO, really good chapter. Now, it's too bad that we're not going to see Escanor anymore, because he was one fantastic character, both in the anime and the manga. Yeah, really good character. Sad to see him go, despite the fact he got his power taken away after he thought the whole battle was over, and he got it back. And apparently getting the power back apparently killed him. Yep. Apparently Merlin did get a chance to share one kiss with the man who actually loved her. Yep. Which is good the fact she did that before he died. Which I'm sure he appreciated that. And with a mark on her face means that, yeah, she'll always remember Escanor. Despite the fact that kiss probably hurt her a lot more than it hurt him. But he probably something you remember him by. Yep. I'm going to give this chapter a 9 out of 10. Really good chapter. So yeah, that's it for this particular review. Stay tuned next for my review of One Piece. Yeah, I'm going to watch next, then I'm going to review, put the 3 videos up, and then, of course, move on to Boruto after that. And then it'll be Fire Force, My Hero Academia, and the last but not least, Big Case Closed, okay? But the next review would be One Piece, okay? See you there. Bye.